Hi, I'm Lynne Franklyn. I have one question for you. How would you like to be a mind reader? Here's the truth. People's brains process information, they think in 3 different ways. And their body language will tell you all day long what their primary style is. You just need to know what to look for and what to do when you see it. It's actually understanding how their brains work and then presenting your information in a way that people can see it, hear it, and feel it, and increase the chances that they'll say yes to whatever you're proposing, like this. I'm gonna bring out our first body language model, James. James represents 75% of the world, but James is a looker. What that means is that James's brain thinks in pictures and images. He stands up tall, he has good posture. Second, he's dressed well because appearance is important to lookers. The next thing you'll notice about James is that he holds a little stress in his shoulders. Lift up your shoulders a little bit. Yeah, holds his stress there. Next thing, you'll notice he has wrinkles in his forehead because James looks up when he remembers something he has seen, and he looks up more often than most of us do. Next thing you'll notice about James is that he has thin lips, suck them in. And this is a chicken and egg thing. We're not quite sure why lookers have thin lips, but most of them do. And the other thing about lookers is they give you lots of eye contact. Here are the 2 things you do to build rapport with him. The first is that you give him lots of eye contact because he literally believes if you do not look at him, you are not paying attention to him and you are ignoring him. The second thing you do with lookers is you give them words that have a visual component to it. I see what you mean, or look at this, or let's picture working together this way. So you use the type of language that is going on in James's brain. Our next body language model is Marge. And Marge represents 20% of the people in the world. Marge is a listener. What this means is that Marge's brain thinks in words and sounds. Marge, not as well dressed as James because appearance is not as important to her. Marge has a tendency to look down and to the left because that's where you look when you're remembering something you have heard. She'll put her head in her hand. It's called telephone posture. She has a tendency to mumble to herself. And it's not that she's crazy, it's that she thinks in words and sounds, so she's really literally talking to herself. She's the pen clicker and the banger on the pen on the table. You do not give them lots of eye contact, it freaks them out. So what you do is that when they're speaking, you look at them and then you look away. And when you're speaking, you look at them and then look away. You use words that are auditory. That sounds good to me. Or let's talk this over. That's the type of language their brain uses, so you're using that to appeal with them. Listeners, 20% of the people in the world. And Marina represents 5% of the people in the world. Marina is a toucher. What that means is that Marina's brain thinks in feelings and tactily. First thing, and the biggest tell on touchers is whether or not they've ever met you before in their lives, they are ready to hug you. They are dressed for comfort rather than style. They have full lips. They have a tendency to lean in because they're trying to decrease the amount of physical space between you and them and build rapport that way. Touchers also have a tendency to reach out and touch your arm when they're in conversation with you. And touchers also have a tendency to look down because that's where you look when you're remembering something you have felt. If you feel comfortable, let them touch you. If you don't feel comfortable, because a lot of us, if you've never met somebody before and they're ready to give you a bear hug, the last thing you want to do is go. So if a toucher is coming at you and you don't feel comfortable, stick your hand out. Give these people a point of contact with you. That's what they're looking for. The second thing you do with touchers is you use language that either has a feeling to it or is tactile. So I want to hear how you're feeling about this. Let's get in touch. Reach out and tell me what you think. That's the kind of language that appeals to touchers, people who process information in feelings and tactily. Which one of these 3 am I? Let's figure that out right now. What I want you to do is close your eyes and remember an important memory. Now, this could be something from your childhood, maybe your 10th birthday party. It could be something that happened to you last week. So an important memory. Now I want you to pay attention to how you're remembering it. Are you remembering it like a movie or a series of pictures and images? Are you remembering it by hearing what people said or describing what happened? Or are you remembering it how you felt or how things felt to you? Okay, open up your eyes. How many of you remembered it like a movie? Right, most of you. How many of you were describing it to yourself, remembering what people said? Right, listeners. And finally, how many of you remember how you felt or how things felt to you? Right, now you know who you are. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. You're going to treat everybody else as though they think the same way. And you've already seen how awful that can be when you're working with a corporate controller who has a different way of thinking. Here's my invitation to you. I want you to start paying attention to other people's body language to figure out how they think. Because here's the magic part of it. Once you start presenting your ideas in a way that they get them, they will say yes to you more often. But here's the scoop too. I'm not asking you to become somebody else, because you can't change how your brain works. It's true, you think in all three ways, but just the way you have a dominant hand, you have a dominant style. You can't change that. But what you can do is accommodate your language, both body and verbal, with the people you're with in order to build rapport, which allows you to reach the full spectrum of people that you're hanging out with. And here's the other magic thing. You don't even have to be in somebody's presence to figure out how their brains work. Interested? Right. All you need to do is listen to or look at the words they're using. So if you're in a phone conversation, listen for the words. If you're reading an email, look at the words. People who are lookers will use more visual language. People who are listeners will use more auditory words, and people who are touchers will use more feeling and kinesthetic words. You don't have to be in that same space to know who they are. So here's my challenge to you. Go back and read some of the emails that you have sent. And you will notice, now that you know who you are, the kind of language that you're using, and it'll back that up. It happens with everybody. So, 10 minutes ago, you didn't think you could read people's body language to read their minds, and now you know what to do. So, practice this stuff on the people at home and the people at work, and when you do this, and when you use these tools to build rapport with all kinds of different people, you'll become the most persuasive person in the room. Thank you.